Let me start with a confession. I beat this game over a year ago. There are actually 4 1cc's that I completed before I started the I Wanna Shmup experiment. 2 of those aren't on the pants list, but one of the others happens to be today's game, M.U.S.H.A Aleste. M.U.S.H.A was developed by Compile. In the STG world, they're best known for the Aleste and Spriggan series. Like basically every great shmup developer, Compile doesn't exist anymore. But the legacy of its work is actually quite healthy today in the form of Puyo Puyo, a Tetris rival that they originally created for the M.S.H.A in 1991. Sega acquired the rights to Puyo Puyo during Compile's initial financial struggles, and they continued developing sequels after the company's closure. Since then, the Puyo Puyo series has sold over 10 million units, which has gotta make you feel for the Compile team, who came up with a winning game just a little too late to be able to save themselves with it. In this case, however, there is actually some good news, as the rights to the Aleste series, excluding M.U.S.H.A, were purchased by M2, the company behind the excellent Shot Triggers series of shmup ports. I'll actually be covering a game from one of these ports in the next video, and I can tell you now, I was blown away. They've made 2 Aleste games since acquiring the license, one for arcades and another for PS4, Nintendo Switch, and the Game Gear. Like this Game Gear, in 2020. Wild. They've had another Aleste game in the works for a little while. It was originally slated for release in 2024, so fingers crossed we'll see it this year. And that's the end of this installment of Bankrupt by Shmups, where we learn the depressing fates of the companies that made the games you love. M.U.S.H.A is a 16-bit vertical scroller with a heavy emphasis on ship customization, or I guess mech customization in this case. You have manual control over your speed settings, the positions of your options, and you can also change or upgrade your special weapon shot type by picking up these different colored power-ups. I like the customizability, but after finding a speed and weapon I liked, I can't say that I engaged with the system much. In most of my run, I'm using the blue power-ups, flying at level 3 speed, and using the basic forward form of the options. I think it would have been interesting if the stages were optimized for different loadouts to encourage players to swap tactics and power-ups throughout their run. To me, M.U.S.H.A kind of feels like the awkward middle evolution between classic STGs and bullet hells. It lacks the mechanical stage design and gameplay variation of classics, but it also lacks the intensity and precision of a bullet hell. At over 40 minutes to clear, it feels a little bloated, especially considering how light the challenge is in the front half. Here I am about 20 minutes in, basically sleepwalking through the game, waiting for sections like this to show up that force me to make more decisions and open up more interesting routing options. M.U.S.H.A isn't a bad game by any means, and I'll get to what I love about it in a moment, but I think being designed for a console audience diluted what could have been a much tighter game. On the plus side, M.U.S.H.A has fantastic music and art direction. The stages, enemies, and bosses all feel like they go together thematically. To demonstrate what I mean, here are screenshots of the first and final stages of Gradius. And here's what the first and final stages of M.U.S.H.A look like. Totally distinct environments with unique enemies and bosses that feel like they belong to the level you encounter them in. That's something I would love to see more of. I also like how some of the levels actually tell you a story, and they set things up that get paid off later. Stage 1 is the best example. You start by watching your friends die around you, leaving you alone to take on this rolling giant temple tank thing. The tank drives off, and so you chase it, following the tread marks that it left behind. When you catch up to it at the end of the level, you know exactly what you're facing. The level just gives you that narrative context naturally, without requiring any cutscenes, manuals, or voiceovers. It's not Scorsese, but it's just enough to contextualize you in the world and to make it memorable. The bosses shine brightest to me in terms of visual and mechanical design. Notice how all of them have faces. They're characters, not just obstacles, which makes them more satisfying to defeat. And not only do they look good, but the better ones present the players with different challenges that require at least a little bit of changing tactics. Ikakuro is your standard dodge left, right, middle, but Scrapface needs to be attacked head-on, except the stage keeps boxing you out, forcing you to squeeze between pillars and find your moment to get damage in. Ayano Kuji takes your already limited screen space and cuts it in half, creating a frantic, up-close and personal battle where you need to bait its central turret out of the way and then quickly weave into a position where you can hit it while avoiding horizontal lasers from either side. Despite some flaws, it's really hard not to like M.U.S.H.A. The game is always interesting interesting to look at and listen to, even in the moments that it's a little bland to play. I waited a little too long after beating the game to come back and talk about it for a video, but to be honest, I don't think I would have had much more to say about the clear last year either. It's just kind of move and shoot. You won't need to do a lot of routing or memorization for this game, which I guess is a good thing, especially considering how long it is. M.U.S.H.A is a console exclusive game, so its difficulty rank is based on the Pericles list. I definitely think it's ranked too high. I'm gonna relitigate all the rankings of the pantsless games I've played so far after I finish rank 10, so we'll see where it ultimately winds up after that. Overall, I think M.U.S.H.A is a solid recommendation for fans of 16-bit console shmups, but if you prefer Danmaku or true arcade games, you may find it to be too long and too easy. That's all for rank 6. Next time we're going fishing in Darius Gaiden via M2's excellent Cosmic Collection. Thanks for watching. And by the way, if you're a shmup veteran, a developer, a collector, or you're just looking to talk about these games, I'd love to interview you. Just reach out in the comments below or private message me looking for pants on the Shmups forums and we can find a time to have a chat. See you next time.